Welcome to the Captain's Run. Now, Smithy, we've got him on the... I got a Barry Crocker, people. I'm not on the Gold Coast today because...
Mate, where are you?
Look, I've let you down, Smithy. It's the first time all year. I haven't made a single error all year. I think this may be the first one. But I booked flights a couple of days ago on Monday, and I thought, I can't wait to see Smithers. I can't wait to see him. Get to yesterday, had everything planned, ready to go to the airport.
Bags packed.
Excited. Can't wait to see Cam. And go to check in, and they're saying, your check-in isn't open for another 24 hours. And I thought, that's strange. I can't believe Jetstar has dropped the ball. And I was like, I must have to check in there. So I was like, kept packing, kept getting ready to go. And I went back and I was like, I'm just going to make sure that I didn't drop the ball because this may be a disaster. Went back, checked, booked the wrong day, Smithy. Booked the wrong days.
Good, mate.
Oh, no. And also there were no flights. You know what, actually, Smithy, there was one flight. And I sat and stared at it for like probably 10 minutes. Yep. It was a business class flight. It was $1,200.
Yep.
And I stared at it for too long, and it went.
Oh no!
And I was like thinking, should I do it? Should I not do it? And then I didn't do it. But anyway, Cam, how are you, mate? How you going?
All good. I'm going good, mate. I'm going good. And you know what? I'd love to have you up here in studio, but technology these days, as everyone knows, we can do it face to face over a bit of Teams or Skype or whatever we're doing today. I'm not too sure what we're doing, but our voices are going out to our listeners, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Now, there's been how's the week been since obviously the incredible week last week?
Yep.
What's it like now? Because Origin's over, you get to relax a bit now. I know you want to play a bit of golf. You've been struggling to get it on the course.
Yes.
But how's it been since the Origin victory?
Oh, mate, it's been great. And just, being up here in Queensland in particular, everyone's really happy after the boys had a really great win in Game 3. And it's always nice coming off knowing that you've got the shield in your hands for the next 12 months at least. So, look, it's been good. It's been good. But we're back into the swing of things now with normal footy, and NRL is in the latter stages of the competition. And I tell you what, it's starting to heat up. The comp and the positions on ladders, they're starting to change a little bit. One of the heavyweights, Melbourne, 3 losses in a row, Kempy. And results, pending over this weekend, we may find another team in the top 4. Possibly. Can we even think about it? Your men, the Broncos.
Wow! Don't get me excited, Smithy. Don't get me excited. Could you imagine the Brizzy Broncos in the top 4 and a Storm not? Wow!
Anyway.
Now, some huge news overnight. Recently, well, not overnight, over the last few days, Victor Radley has decided that he would like to play for England. Now, Victor Radley's father was born in Sheffield in England, and the World Cup is coming up. Now, with Victor Radley choosing to play for England because they are a Tier 1 nation, he can now no longer play for Australia, and he now can no longer play for New South Wales. First of all, thoughts on Radley, who was a part of the New South Wales squad, choosing to play for England?
Yeah. Well, it's understandable, right? If your father's born, or any of your parents, not just your father, but if your parents are born in another country and you feel as though you feel strongly enough that you'd like to represent the country of your parents' birthplace, then I've got no drama with that. I think the eligibility rules around then going to play for another nation as far as state of origin, and then in the future, representing Australia, I think that's the confusing part. Given, Victor was born in Australia, he plays out here. He was in the New South Wales squad this year. There's a lot of grey area in this subject, isn't there, Kempy?
Oh, mate, absolutely. And it's a really, really tough one because I'll be 100% honest. As a Queenslander and an Australian, there's a big part of me that says, nah, hang on a sec. You want to play Origin? You got to play for Australia. I love this country. I love my state. And that's how much it means to me. And I want everyone else that plays in that jersey, even though I didn't play in that jersey, but if I was to play in that jersey, I want them all to care about the country as much as me. So that's the traditional side of me, the guy that's purely thinking selfishly. But there's another side of me that understands the changing landscape of rugby league.
Yes.
We're looking at I think it's like over 50% have Polynesian heritage. And so I can understand as a game that it may be more healthy for us to consider looking at eligibility rules again. Now, I don't mean just scrap it and say it's a free-for-all and you can just play for whatever you want.
Yeah.
But, is there a situation or a scenario where we say, okay, look, if you've been here since you were 13 years old, you can play for your state, as in being in that state.
Yes.
And then you can also play for whatever country you are, only because of the changing landscape. So because of the changing landscape, I'm leaning more towards that side of things to help grow the game internationally. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation, Smithy.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Is there a right answer or a wrong answer? I'm not too sure. I think from a point of view of, let's just take this year for an example. So Brian he plays for New South Wales in all 3 State of Origin matches, and that's fine. He is the form winger for New South Wales and should have been there. But he won't be representing Australia at the end of the year. Mm. And I tell you a big chance of who will be there, and that's Josh Addo-Carr. Now, we all know the situation there. Josh Addo-Carr missed out on selection in the New South Wales side this year. But we'll have a situation where in the World Cup, let's just say Josh gets picked, and I really feel as though that's a huge possibility. Josh Addo-Carr will be representing Australia in a World Cup, but wasn't good enough to play for New South Wales in the State of Origin. Mm. Now, traditionally, you'd look at the State of Origin, and they are sort of, that's like a selection sort of series to represent Australia at the end of the year. Now, I know it's not wholly and solely based on the series and the team that wins, and even the performances throughout that series. But I'd like to think that it plays a fair role in that. Mm. So I guess if we go down this path of almost getting rid of the tier situation that Mal Meninga has tossed up, and respectfully to Mal, he's been around the game for a long time. He's played State of Origin. He's played international football. He's coached in both arenas. So you need to respect, his opinions. But by doing so, I think we're going to find ourselves in more and more of these situations, as you mentioned, Kempy, with so many more cultures being involved in our game now. So the Polynesian players, there's Papua New Guinean players playing in our competition who are some of the elite players of our comp. We're now having guys with, like in Victor Radley's situation, family heritage over in England as well. We're going to be finding ourselves in situations where there's people or players representing our country that can't even get a start in our State of Origin. Mm. So I think this is where we need to make a decision around eligibility rules. And I know it's been a discussion now for a long, long time, and they've changed. Mm. They seem to change it, every couple of years to try and find out the best way to get around this sort of stuff. But I think if we want to go down a black and white rule where everyone's clear on who's eligible for who, and this may hurt either State of Origin or international football, but I think you just need to nominate. Like if you want to play State of Origin, if you want to represent Queensland or New South Wales, which is a state of Australia, then I think you need to be available to play for the Kangaroos. Mm. I really do. And from there, I understand that if you're not selected for the Kangaroos, then you can play for your second nominated country. Mm. And I'm not saying that that it's wrong to want to play for the country of your family's heritage, which Mal Meninga has mentioned. I completely understand that. But if you want to put your hand up and say, look, I want to play State of Origin football, well, you're representing a state of Australia. Mm. So if you're willing and you're happy to play State of Origin and take on everything that State of Origin football gives you, not to mention a large sum of money per match to play State of Origin, then you should be available for Australia at least to be selected for them.
Do you think that could potentially hurt the international game, or are you kind of in the mindset of one part of the game's getting hurt, either Origin or international game? Origin,
yeah, exactly.
And so, do you just kind of feel like, well, look, Origin, there's a clear path to eligibility here, and the logical sense would be it's a state inside Australia, so let's stick with that rather than potentially harming Origin to lift up the international game?
Yeah. Well, I think you look at all the current players and you ask them who they'd prefer to play for first. That's maybe the question you need to ask is who are you putting ahead of who? Is it state of origin or is it your country? So if you're willing to play for, say, like in Victor Radley's case, I want to play for England, and my feelings are that strong. I want to represent England, where my father was born, mate. That's great. Happy for you. Happy to improve, the quality of the England side. That's great. But you can't play state of origin now. I understand that, and same for other countries. If I want to play for Tonga or Samoa, that's great. That's great for the international game. I completely understand that, and that's your family's heritage. But then that means you're ineligible for state of origin. So those people that are willing to play for the Kangaroos, then they have the opportunity to represent either Queensland or New South Wales.
Yeah, I'm so torn.
And I know it's a really difficult one. It's a really difficult one. I just think it'll get really messy if we open the floodgates and just say, look, do your best, and just have one rule as to you have to be in Australia or in either New South Wales or Queensland by the time you're what age did you say it was?
13.
13. Yeah, I don't know. I think that may just open the floodgates because like in reality, we may get to a point in time, let's just say 10 years down the track, 15 years down the track, where there won't be a single person playing in Origin that will be playing for the Kangaroos. That is an absolute reality in the next 10 years. I don't know. I look at the future of our game, and I just think with the amount of Polynesian players playing in the NRL now, with how they're great athletes, they're wonderful footballers. As I said, guys from Papua New Guinea coming down, players with ties to England and whatnot, how they're improving in their ability to play in the NRL. I just feel as though there may be a point in time, like down the track, where, so let's even say half of the footballers involved in state of origin, they will be representing other countries. It'll be a really, really strange situation that we find ourselves in. So we just, I don't know, the next decision that we make, or the next sort of talks we have around this eligibility thing, it's going to have to be really well planned out.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, before walking in here, I would have been pretty, pretty open to going, look, you know what, if you've been here since 13, you can play Origin, and then you can play for whatever country is your heritage. But you've made some really good points. It would be very strange in 10 years' time if both sides were essentially filled with players that don't play for the country, and then later in the year we have an Australian side that
hasn't played Origin.
That didn't play Origin. That's a really good point. I didn't think of that at all. I just assumed it would always stay the way it is like 2 to 3 players may decide to play for their heritage, not a lot.
Well, look, and mate, this is complementing the Polynesian and, as I said, Papua New Guinean and England players or guys that have that heritage. That's complementing where they are now with how good they are at rugby league, and the athletes that we're seeing in our game. Like they're doing so many great things in our game. But that's an absolute possibility. I'm just thinking, long term, that if we open the floodgates and just say, look, if you're here by 13, no dramas, you can play for Origin, you can play in the state of origin, and you can play for a country of your choice. There is a really strong possibility that you will see maybe half of the players playing in Origin eligible to play for the Kangaroos. It'd be a very, very strange thing to see.
What about this? You have to put Australia as your number one desired team, and I know that would frustrate some, Tongan Samoan fans, because they'd be like, once again, Australia gets all the good players and we just get left with the players that don't make the side. But like a common ground of like, if you put Australia as your number one, and if you don't make the side, then you can play for any country regardless of tier, and then come back. Would that be a common ground you think that could work, or?
Oh, look, possibly, mate, and that's what I'm saying. I think we just need to be really careful with the decisions that we make in the near future with this. As you mentioned, and you're correct, you're absolutely 100% right that there's a changing landscape in the NRL. where we're seeing more players that are eligible to play for other countries playing in the NRL right now. And again, that's saying like these guys from these other countries, like they're doing some wonderful things in our game. And as I said, they're some of the best athletes, they're some of the best footballers in our game. It's just it's a really, really grey area at the moment that I think we need to get sorted. I think the players want a bit more of an idea of where you can and can't play. I think the fans need a bit more of an idea as well. I think just everyone following the game can be like, look at our conversation right now.
Yeah.
I think if you go around to 100 people, you'd probably have, multiple different opinions on what's right or what's wrong. Well, not so much what's right and what's wrong. It's just the various opinions that you get on this certain subject.
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting. As I said, before walking in here, I just said, you know what? Let them play for their heritage in Queensland and New South Wales. But putting that point there, when you really sit down and go, you know what? That's a real reality. Like in 10 years, the Polynesian boys, they're so impressive. PNG,
absolutely.
People with different heritage that we could be looking at an origin without Australian, like as in people that played for Australia after. So, mate, really, really good points. We've got some text here though. It's people are really passionate about this topic. The One-Eyed Tiger has texted in. He said, who would have ever thought that I would agree with Cameron on selection criteria for Australia? I don't like New South Wales giving 2 spots to players that don't want to play for Australia. Give it to 2 players that want to play for Australia. And then we've got another text from Blady. He said, absolutely fair point, Smithy. You have to keep the integrity of the state name, New South Wales, Queensland. Otherwise, it will be filled with no one from the respective states. Then there's another text as well, John from Bexley. Anyone should be allowed to play for their country of heritage, regardless of the state of origin appearances. They are 2 completely separate rep situations. So he's on the other side of the fence.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Campy. And that's exactly what I said, mate. You grab 100 people and bring up this subject, and there'll be various opinions on what they feel is the best way to go about it. But I think just as a game, we just need to clear it up. This has been a confusing sort of area of the game for quite some time now, to the point where you look at was it Ronaldo Mulitalo last year? He was selected. He was selected to play Origin. He was in camp, and then a couple of days in, he was given a phone call and said, "Actually, mate, you're not eligible."
Wow.
This is how confusing the whole situation is.
Yeah.
To
Wow.
have a bloke thinking who grew up, played in the junior Queensland representative sides, representing Queensland at 16s and 18s, I think it was,
And would have chosen Australia to play for, like he would have played for Australia.
Exactly. So this is what I mean. This is exactly my point. So the game needs to sit down and have a clear path for eligibility around playing state of origin and then what country you will then play for.
I think a really good, again, this is really easy for me to say the NRL to spend their money. I understand things cost money. But one thing I would say is that if we can get it from a young age where we make the rules really clear, but we give people with different heritages equal opportunity to earn, maybe not as much money as a Queensland and New South Wales game because it doesn't generate as much money, but at least put enough money into Samoa versus Tonga, PNG versus Fiji, so that those games can get propped up to potentially grow their own following. So, for example, anyone that knows anything about Samoa and Tonga know that they have a deep history. They used to go to war against each other, not to say that that's today. So if you could cultivate that and turn it into its own kind of state of origin, I'm sure there would be, I love watching Samoa versus Tonga.
Oh, it's the best.
And so I do think that a way to kind of make it easier for people with different heritages is if they had that to play instead of Origin, they may say, you know what, I don't want to play for Australia. I want to play for Samoa, and I don't have to play Origin because I've got the Samoa-Tonga game. Yep. Anyway, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got the coaching merry-go-round. We've got Mitchell Moses. How much is he worth? Tom Trbojevic, bombshell. We've got plenty more to talk about. Dave Fifita. So stay tuned. Give us a text, 0457 736 736, or give us a call, 1300 01 1170. See you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. We've got a caller here, Smithy. We've got Andrew from Newcastle. Andrew, you there, mate?
Yeah, g'day, guys. I love the program, and very interesting topic this morning. And I'm like that last texter. I totally agree with with Smithy, which is probably the first time in my life as well. But,
Good on you, mate.
love you, Smithy. I'm a Manly fan, so you can see where that's coming from.
Yeah, mate.
But I agree. Like, State of Origin State of Origin was always New South Wales, Queensland, and then the narrative's changed to the best versus the best. But it's littered with examples throughout history where they haven't been the best players in the comp. They've just been the most passionate that want to represent their state. Look at the 95 Queensland team, the 2020 Queensland team. They haven't been the best of the best. They've just been Queenslanders. And New South Wales players representing their state. So, for example, if Brian To'o and Jerome Luai decided to represent their heritage, which is fine, and they weren't involved in this year's series, if you replace them with Josh Addo-Carr and Cody Walker, the series wouldn't be of anything less, would it? You'd still got the same amount of, and maybe even more passion, who knows? But I just agree, you've got to be available for selection for Australia if you put your hand up for Origin, and that's the way it's always been. And probably if you asked Arthur Beetson and Tom Rodonigus, they'd 100% agree.
Mate, you know what? Again, as I said to Smithy, I was pretty strongly in the camp of let the boys play for their heritage in their state, but you make really good points. You really do make good points. It's hard to say, it's hard to argue against that, especially as a bloke that grew up in Queensland and how much it means to me personally to see the boys go out there. And even, as I said, I've said it a few times now, played under 19s Queensland, New South Wales, and obviously that isn't actually NRL. I mean, there was a lot of NRL players. There's just something different about putting that jersey on when you're from that area and you're willing to play for the country as well. So I totally see yourself and Cam's point. It's such a complicated situation, but because of the changing landscape. But you're right. Would we really lose anything if we, those boys weren't playing and it was Cody Walker or Josh Addo-Carr? I think they would do just as passionate as a job. Some might even argue better, but I don't think that their heritage has anything to do with that. More selection process. But Smithy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think what Andrew just spoke about, that's what I've been saying as well, is that I think it'll be a strange situation at the end of this year when I feel as though Josh Addo-Carr will be picked in the Kangaroos, and he wasn't good enough to be picked to play in the State of Origin. So you've got a guy who's good enough to play for Australia, who is, you'd like to think that they're a really good chance of winning this World Cup, but he wasn't even he wasn't seen in an Origin game at all this year. That's the situation where I think, well, that just looks a bit strange to me. So again, the game needs to sit down and have a really careful think about the way they go with this eligibility stuff.
Thanks for the call, Andrew. It's a great call, mate, and made some really good points, especially the point around. It's changed to the best versus the best. Yeah. When you're right, really, it's the most passionate versus the most passionate. That's what it should be.
Well, that's what Origin was built on, Canby, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
That's the difference. That's what separates it from a club game.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think we've had another text come in, like the way the Origin's going at the moment, and if we do make it just open slather for everyone to just play, it turns into more of an all-star event, doesn't it? Like we see in the NBA and the NFL, like those American sports where it's more of an event rather than an actual game where two teams are out there, trying their very best for, their state, and they will do anything possible to go out and get a victory. That's I think that's something we don't want to lose in State of Origin, what we have right now.
Yeah, mate. I'm so conflicted. I think honestly, because the tough thing for me is that as I said, if you had asked me probably a year ago, I would be totally in agreement with you. I think it's like when you meet these young Polynesian boys and you see how much it does mean to them still, like they really do care, and they really do. For example, you look at the Samoan boys last year for New South Wales; they were absolutely outstanding. They were a part of a record-breaking win.
Yes.
And so you can see, it absolutely means a lot to them. But you're right, there also is a case for, where do we draw the line? Because it could get to a point where one whole side is with the players that don't play for Australia. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I'll have to go away and think about this. We're going to head to the news, though, and see you on the other side. Question for you, mate. Now, I sat back, obviously. I enjoyed the incredible win last week. Now, DCE, he's such an interesting character to me because we all know he's the elite of the elite halfback. You know, he's always competing. Yes, Manly haven't had a good run over the last, I guess, 5 to 6 years, but they've always been competitive. Made it to, I think, prelim is the furthest they've made it. He's won a premiership. He's been in a grand final. And, with DCE, I really feel like after 2020, that was, in my opinion, that was Munster's moment. He owned the moment and stamped his authority and also his legacy in the Origin arena. Whereas I really feel after 2022, DCE finally has his own legacy in Origin. And what I mean by that is no disrespect to DCE at all. As I said, huge fan of him and everything he's achieved. But I really do feel that for the years after yourself, Billy and Cooper retired, that squad was really in your shadow trying to find its own identity. And I think that in 2022, DCE said, this is my legacy. This is what I'll be remembered for. And I think he stamped his Origin legacy for the rest of the time. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely, Kempy. I agree with you. And I think, particularly in Game 3, I think he knew the responsibility was on his shoulders. Not wholly and solely. Let's not just say that he felt or any pressure was put on Daly in Game 3 to say, mate, you need to get this team home. But I think when Cam Munster went down on the Friday, was it the Friday? Yeah, on the Friday leading into Origin 3, I really seen a shift in Daly's focus and preparation. I think that's when he realised, listen, I need the biggest game of my Origin career this game, and he come up with an absolute perler in Game 3. It was I think, looking back on his performances over his career, that's spanned over nearly a decade. He represented Queensland way back in 13, I think it was, when he first played. So it's been nearly 10 years that Daly's been involved at that level. But I haven't seen such a dominant or maybe a mature performance as what he put in Game 3, like his kicking game. Wow. And he didn't try to overplay things as well. Like, he just did what he was good at. And he brought his strengths to that footy side. He organised the footy team. His passing and his combinations with his edge players was fantastic. His kicking game really just put a nail in New South Wales' coffin, particularly towards the end of the game. He just kicked New South Wales to death, and that's what was needed. Like, he didn't have to be the best player on the field. He didn't have to come up with any outstanding or just out of this world plays. He just needed to bring to the team what he's extremely good at, and that's organising, connecting the middle players with the edge players, getting the footy out to those strike guys out on the edge, and kick well. And so that's, I think, with a performance like that, particularly in the situation, as I mentioned, with Munster being out, a lot of the talk saying, well, their best player's gone, they're no chance. This is New South Wales' game. This is their series to win. And then he come up with a performance like that. I think it just cements his legacy as a Queensland player in that maroon jersey. And you got to think back, mate. Like, you got to think back when he first started. Like, he wasn't playing halfback. Like, he wasn't playing in the halves. He was used as a utility, where he actually didn't know when he was going to get on the field. He didn't know what position he'd be in or what role he'd play. There was some sort of, like we'd build with our preparation and say, hey, mate, in this situation, this is where you might be used, or, in this situation, this is what we may need you to do. But it was all about him just being able to read a different situation and fill in that spot. So that was a little bit unfair to him, but he was good enough at the time to go in there and fill that role. But I agree with you. Like, as he's come in now and taken over as the leader of this footy side, there's no doubt that Game 3 was his best.
Oh, it was amazing. And I think one real standout thing for me was his ability to identify what the game needed. It is like to have enough of a field for the game in that second half to identify and go, you know what? I need to just start kicking early. I need to start kicking long, and we need to basically not even worry about any of the razzle-dazzle getting to the edges. Now, I'm not sure if that was a call from Billy that went down, but, if it was DC that was on the field, on the fly, identifying that, that's an incredible moment in rugby league, in my opinion. So, great stuff from DCE. Now, on to another half. There's been a recent report come out. I forgot the person's name, apologies, but an article was written saying that Mitchell Moses is not worth $1 million. The timing's a bit rough. I mean, he was getting death threats a few days ago, but
fair dinkum.
Yeah, fair dinkum. Fair dinky die, seriously. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I think that a lot of people don't understand the landscape of a salary cap, and they don't understand the context in which a lot of players are signed. But first of all, I wanted to get your thoughts on that comment that Mitchell Moses is not worth $1 million, Smithy.
Yeah, but like, who decides though?
It was Paul Crawley, sorry. It was Paul Crawley that wrote that article.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's not these journalists that decide. They're not involved with the footy clubs. So who's to say, like, why is he not worth $1 million? Like, to Parramatta, he might be worth $1 million. To the Melbourne Storm, he might be worth $1 million. To the West Tigers, he might be worth $1.3 million. Who knows? Like, it's at the end of the day, it's up to these the football clubs. They decide on what a player's worth. Now, he may not be the best halfback in the game, but depending on a certain club's situation and their need for a halfback or a leader, a goal kicker, whatever it is, they may just need that person to boost the profile of the club and to entice maybe some commercial opportunities to come in, boost revenue at their club, maybe to boost membership, whatever it is. But if they need to pay someone $1 million to maybe, boost, as I said, the profile of their club, boost revenue, whatever it is, it may be just to help the football team and get the best out of the players that are currently there. And if they feel as though they need to spend $1 million to get that person there, then that's up to the club. That's up to the club. It's not the player's issue. If a club's willing to pay $1 million, then that's what they're worth. It's like a house. If you put your house on the market and you think it's worth $800,000, but someone says, "Oh, I'll pay $1 million," well, then it's worth $1 million, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
And vice versa. If you think it's worth 1.5, but someone's only willing to pay 800, well, it's worth 800. That's the situation it's in.
Yeah. No, mate, I totally agree. And just, like the situation a lot of clubs find themselves in is that, okay, let's say you're the Para Eels. Right now, you've got in my opinion, a premiership threat roster. Now,
yes.
You could play hardball with Mitchell Moses, and I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't pay him $1 million, but I'm saying why they could find themselves in a position where they will pay $1 million. Would you rather, as a Para Eels fan, them play hardball with Mitchell Moses and say, "Nah, you compared to say Cleary or whatever is only worth $750 to $800," then they lose Mitchell Moses over a difference of $200,000, and let's say Para Eels go from the top 4 side all the way down to missing the 8. Yep. What would you rather as a Para fan? Would you rather have them budged and said, let's keep Mitchell Moses and pay a little bit extra? Yes, he's probably, on in everything being fair, is he worth $1 million? Hasn't won a premiership? Maybe not. But to us right now, for the club and the direction we need to go in, let's pay that little bit extra to stay in the top 4. And that's the difficult choice clubs face, is that it's not just about like, oh, okay, well, if Nathan Cleary's on $1 million, then you're on $700. It's about what does that player mean to this club and getting to where we need to go.
Yeah, I think it's entirely individual, on an individual basis, player by player, club by club, certain situations, and that's part of the negotiation process, isn't it? Is to really sit down and say, look, where can we both get to make sure that you're happy as a player and we're happy as a club, and we can move forward on our quest to win a premiership. What's it going to take for you to stay, and how much can we pay you that you'll be happy to play here and give your services to our footy club? And it's a difficult one. It's a juggling act, and those that do it best, those guys with great recruitment systems in place, they got good list management, and they're able to balance the playing group and be able to put together a roster where they can manage the salary cap at the same time. They're usually the clubs that succeed. And so, the last thing you want to do is go out and break the bank to get an individual player. But at the same time, I'd like to think that players are understandable and say, listen, like if I take huge money here, how will that affect the rest of my playing squad? Will that be, because surely, when you're playing this game, like you want to win a premiership, don't you? Like if you're playing rugby, if you're playing in the NRL, like you want to win a premiership. So the last time I looked, like no team has ever won a premiership fielding one player or 5 players. You need more than just your main man or even the 17 that take the field each week. You need an entire group to get you through that are all on the same page, are all heading in the same direction to work towards a premiership, to be able to lift the trophy at the end of the year.
No, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. A good example, I think, is like, the Storm. So, for example, I think internally they probably do believe Cam Munster is worth $1 million. I think, and I'm not, I'm not sure of that, or I haven't been told anything like that, but I think internally they probably do believe, on the open market he is. But for us as a club, that is just not the value we can afford to pay him right now. And so it's a kind of a example of the reverse, where does anyone really believe that the Storm think that he's only worth $750 on the open market? Well, no, but to them and the system that they've got set up, that's the value in which they want to place him at. Now, we've had a huge call from Tom Trbojevic come out. He said that Turbo. Speaking of game changers, Turbo has come out and said that he may be fit for week 2 of the finals. If you're a captain of a club, Smithy, and you've got your absolute red-hot superstar potentially ready for week 2 of the finals, are you planning to, I guess, not like planning to get there so that he's there, because obviously you are, you're trying to win the grand final, but is that a part of your planning, or are you saying, mate, let's try and prepare without Tom Trbojevic and just move forward this year without him? What would you do in that situation?
Mate, it's a difficult one, Kempy. That's a really difficult situation, because the value that he adds to that footy side and the impact that he has on the footy team. Like, that when he plays, they win more games than they lose. So let's just say Manly get themselves in a position at the end of this year where they finish, let's just say they finish 5th or 6th. And I don't know, no one knows whether that's going to happen or not. There's a lot of footy to be played, but let's just say they get in that position. And so they got a shot at, possibly winning the first week of finals and then going into second week of finals. Now, if Tom Trbojevic is fit, you'd have to consider playing him. Now, and I mean absolutely 100% raring to go. I'm not putting him in there if he's not 100%. Let's just get that clear right now. If he's not 100%, sorry, mate. Like, get ready for next year. But if he's 100% ready to go, gee, you'd have to consider putting him in.
Oh, mate,
don't you? Like, would you?
He's one of the handful of players that I would consider. Very, very few players would I want to upset the balance of a team that's got me in the second week of the finals.
Yeah,
he's that guy.
Well, just because mate, immediate impact. Such as the influence on that footy side that he has.
Look what Latrell's done at the Rabbitohs.
Oh, mate, it's just you're not just bringing back one of the best players in the competition into your footy side. The confidence that he brings to the rest of his team members. That's the huge part of him being included in that side if he's fit and ready to go. Now, the other thing they got to weigh up is say, look, what's the risk? If there's any risk at all, Kempy, if there's any risk at all of him going back in and possibly re-injuring himself. Now, you can't rule out other injuries, but if he was to go back in and re-injure the pec that he's dealing with now, or the shoulder, then it's just a line through his name straight away.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got my favourite segment with Schnitz. See you on the other side.
Time now to break down the best hands in the NRL. Thanks to Schnitz, the best hands in the schnitzel business.
Welcome back to the Captain's Run with the great Cameron Smith. Now, time for one of my favourite segments, thanks to Schnitz. Best hands, thanks to Schnitz, the best schnitzel's in all the land. But Smithy, what have you got this week, mate?
My 1 point this week, Kempy, Joey Manu. Just quickly on Joey Manu, how good is he playing?
Oh,
I don't think he'll ever leave that number 6 jersey.
Well, that's something we're going to talk about. That's something we'll talk about later in the show.
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Yep.
Anyway, his flick pass to Victor Radley to score the opening try against the Dragons. Roosters on fire. Dragons, a little bit of trouble, but anyway. 2 points, back-to-back no-look passes from the Foz, Kieran Foran and Daly Cherry Evans.
Wow.
They're in outstanding form, those two, at the moment. To send big Jason Saab over for his second try on the weekend. Manly on fire once again. But 3 points must go to James Schiller. Now, I don't know if you've seen this one, Kempy.
Yep.
Raiders v. the Storm on the weekend. I don't know how he did this, but it was his miraculous effort to put the ball down. After he grubbered, he put a grubber in, ran outside the field of the play, come back in, put 1 foot back in the field of play, and then did a little Superman dive and got the ball in, got the ball to ground before it went over the dead ball line. Try of the season for 9.
Mate, it was
particularly
amazing.
an individual effort.
Yeah.
So that's my 3 points.
And he's second or third game all year. Incredible stuff from Schiller. That was best hands, thanks to Schnitz. Bite into golden, delicious, handcrafted Schnitz. After the break, we'll wrap up. It's already been an hour, Smithy. Already an hour. You're kidding.
No way.
We'll see.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. That's how good this has been. You're having fun. You're enjoying yourself. Time flies. See you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Make sure to text in 0457 736 736 or give us a call on 1300 01 1170. That is 1300 01 1170. Give us a call. Ask any footy question you want. You get to speak to the GOAT, Cam Smith. Ask him all of his footy knowledge. But we've got some big news. A big quote coming out from the great Billy Moore. Billy Moore has come out on which podcast? The Fox League podcast. And he has said about David Fifita, give him to Redcliffe, get him off your books and pay whatever portion you have to. Huge call. Now, my opinion, Smithy,
Yes.
is that I don't think Fifita is the problem at the Titans. I think that, 1.2 or whatever he's on a year, that's overs for sure. But when you compare his stats to nearly any other back rower in the comp, they're actually up there with arguably in the top 3. And this has been outside, and no disrespect to the current halves at the Titans, but they have absolutely struggled. There's no denying that. All of Fifita's stats has essentially come off one-off runs off the ruck. You put Fifita outside a high-quality half, like let's say an Adam Reynolds or, Chad Townsend or a Cleary, he would be an absolute wrecking ball and back to his best. What are your thoughts on the fact that, it seems that some may think that he's the issue at the Titans?
Yeah. Well, I think Billy Moore's comments was around he's an issue for their salary cap. So, and understandably, when you're paying someone that much money, you want to see a return. Now, you mentioned his stats, and I agree with you. Some of the stats that when you stack them up against other back rowers, he's like for like. I just think he hasn't really been given too much opportunity this year. That's what I feel. And I think, and I've said this before, that I believe the Titans have well and truly underperformed this year as a footy club.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. They were playing semi-final football last year, and I feel as though their roster this year is better than it was last year. It's just, I think it's a little bit unfair just to lob all the issues that they've had this year on one person. Now, he's been missing I think he's missed half a dozen games through injury. Now that's a difficult one because I'm sure he wouldn't want to get injured. Players want to be out there playing as much football as they possibly can. But again, it goes back to that same argument. And Billy Moore said as much, I think, in that those quotes that you were talking about. He got paid $1.2 million. That's not his fault. The Gold Coast Titans offered him that. You can't question a player for taking that salary. I just think that they haven't found a game plan to be able to get him involved in the right manner. I really don't. Now some of that responsibility falls on David Fifita. I feel as though at times he needs to go looking for the ball. I feel as though that he needs to be calling for the football to say, hey, look, give it to me and I'll get something done for you here. But at the same time, he plays in a position where, you need a fair bit of work going on the inside of you, from your dummy halves, from your ruck players, and in particular your halves, to put you in a situation where you can be at your damaging best. Now, we've seen him at his damaging best, where he can beat 3 and 4 defenders and score tries. That's a given. There's no questioning his ability to do that. But at the moment, I just feel as though they're lost for answers, so they turn to Fifita and say, "Here you go, mate. Do something for us." And he's just running into brick walls.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that at certain times, Kempy, players need to do that. Your big players, they need to carry the ball in tough situations. They need to have tough carries. But he's a guy that is so damaging when he's got space around him and he's got an opportunity to come off his right foot, come off his left foot, put a fend out there, put a spin on, whatever it is. So find ways to present that picture to him. You know what I mean? It's not just, hey, mate, we've seen you. You're a wrecking ball. Every time we give you the football, just produce one of those runs. You need to come up. It's not the way it works. You need to be able to put David Fifita in those situations where he has an opportunity to do that. And he'll do it. If you put him in those situations more times than not, he'll break a couple of tackles. He'll make 15 metres. He'll get you a quick play of the ball. And sometimes he'll score a try for you.
Yeah.
I just think they need to work out a way to be able to put him in those situations more often than not.
No, yeah, mate, I totally agree. I also think that he's been a victim of constantly changing halves. People may underestimate your wide running forward is so at the behest of your ball players, because not only do you need them to get to certain points on the field, at times you need to, let's say there's a set, and the set is all about getting Fifita the ball. But then in that set, the half decides, no, I'm going to change things up, or I'm not going to direct us well enough to get us to the points that give Fifita the space. It would be very different if Fifita was playing in the front row and he wasn't getting through the work required, which is actually, earlier this year, I actually thought that, in my opinion, I would chuck him in the front row because I just get his hands on the ball, because clearly...
Involvement.
Just get him in there. Just get him in there. But this is his stats in 11 games this year. He's averaging 120 metres, which is quite high for a wide running forward, 22 tackles and 4 tackle bust per game. So I agree with Billy Moore in the sense that, for sure, like bang for buck, they're not getting their value. I don't think anyone's denying that, but I don't think that's 100% Fifita's fault. I actually think that decisions around him that are being made that are affecting his ability to impact the game that he was purchased to actually do.
Well, just quickly, Campy, I'll give you an example. So take Ryan Hoffman for an example, a left-back rower. Gavin Cooper played outside Jonathan Thurston, okay? Now, with all due respect to Gavin Cooper and Ryan Hoffman, certainly not the physical they don't have the physical attributes a Fifita has, do they? Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%.
Great players in their own right. Played state of origin football. Hoffy played for Australia. But what they did have, they had a system in place with their half. Ryan Hoffman with Cooper Cronk, Gavin Cooper with Jonathan Thurston, and they had an understanding of each other. And those halves, they would work extremely hard to put those boys into situations where they had space to run into or give them one-on-one opportunities with the defender. And they made line breaks. They scored tries. They created space for themselves to give offloads to a fullback or a centre pushing through the space outside them. But it was all because of the combination and the ability of the halves to put them in those situations to do those things. I just think if you look at it in that circumstance, imagine what a David Fifita could do if they had like a half like that putting him into space.
Yeah.
And he could possibly have that next year with Kieran Foran.
I think he will. I think Foran will build a really, really good combination. I think a really good example is, Kikau has been accused, I guess, of similar things to Fifita, of get more involved and, all that kind of stuff. And there have been years where Kikau's been quiet. But ever since Cleary and Luai have really put together a good combination, Kikau is constantly being put into the best space possible for him. And I think anyone that thinks that Fifita doesn't have the same abilities as Kikau, I think we'd all agree that they're probably... equally as
they're like for like.
They're like for like in the way they can break games open. So I again, to be clear, there are some games where I watch Fifita and go, I just need you to get more involved. And 1.2 million, it's a lot of money, but I do think that when the Titans get Foran into the club, if he's still struggling to get those opportunities, I would be surprised. I think Foran's going to give him some really good ball, some really good opportunities. I think personally, and I've said it ad nauseum, that the Titans made an error in not keeping an experienced half at the club.
Yep.
It doesn't mean he has to start every week, but it's the stuff off the field. It's the training. It's when, Sexton is under pressure and he needs a guy that's been through everything to sit him down and be like, mate, don't listen to the noise. Stick to this, blah, blah, blah. And I think Foran's going to be outstanding in that department. Absolutely outstanding. Now, on to round preview. Tonight, we've got the Para Eels versus the mighty Brisbane Broncos. The mighty Brisbane Broncos.
What are you thinking? Give me your thoughts first, please.
It's weird because I still sometimes look at the Broncos and I'm like, are they that team that they were last year? Do they still have that in them? And so I'm still of the mindset that they're not fully a top 4 side yet, and that's just because of my own, I guess, hesitancy to finally believe, because then I'll get let down.
Yep. Get that.
But to be honest, every single week goes by, I become more and more convinced that we're a genuine top 4 side. And I think last week was a really good example. Yeah, we didn't play the best. Yeah, we were missing a bunch of players and we were playing a desperate Titans, and we managed to get the win. And that's what I believe separates top 4 sides from the rest of the comp, is the sides that even when they don't play the best and they don't have their players, they still find a way to get the win.
Yep.
So I like the Broncos in this. They've got most of their boys back outside Selwyn Cobbo. With the Eels, we've got Ryan Madison returns from a rib injury, which sees Nia Corey revert to the bench. And Kai Dropwell dropped. What a name. Kai Dropwell.
Yeah,
dropped. To 80th man. Then we got Corey Oates, Kurt Catewell, Paddy Carrigan returned from their post-origin rest. Selwyn Cobbo remains sidelined. The Great Payne Haas has been named for his first game since round 16. I tell you what, I think everyone deserves a massive round of applause for the way that has been, that Payne Haas situation, how that didn't derail the whole season, explode the club. It's amazing that they've managed to just pull it all back in, and it's like business as usual.
Yep. I'll tell you what, I reckon the Broncos can get this done. I really do. Now, I called the Parramatta Warriors game last week, and I don't know, they were quite unconvincing, Para. I know they had a strong win in the end. One man that the Broncos need to be careful with tonight is Mike Acevo. He was outstanding last week, but I don't know, Parramatta, they did what they had to do last week. And I don't know, it's hard. It's hard when you get in that frame of mind where we'll do what we have to do, and then all of a sudden they're coming up against a side who's sitting 5th and playing with a lot of confidence, to then flick the switch and go, righto, let's play now. That's the only worry I have with Parramatta, and it's year after year, and this is where I feel as though Parramatta fans get quite frustrated, is that they promise so much in the first half of the year. And it's like they then go and play a different style of footy in the second half of the year. Where they look most dangerous is they have that good mix of, physical, direct running with their big men, and then they like to use the football. They take it wide. They give opportunities to their speed men out on the outside edges. Mitch Moses, Dylan Brown have really strong combinations. They have high involvement, touches on the footy. Whereas now, I don't know, it feels as though last week they were very conservative with their football. And I don't know whether it was just, hey, boys, let's just get through this game. I don't know, Moses kicked quite well, but I just didn't see much from them. Again, the best way to describe the match was they did what they had to do. The only danger with that is, by doing that, is you can get yourself in a situation where that's the mindset that you take into every game. And then all of a sudden you may find yourself 2 and 3 tries down, and then you're trying to get your game kick started. You get in this natural habit of, hey boys, let's just go out there, get through our sets, let's kick well. That's fine. That's all you can complete well. But unless you're playing footy in the modern game, you got to play some football to win football matches. If you look at the Storm for example, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later in the show, but they've lost their last 3. If you look on stats alone, they haven't been that bad. they've actually outcompleted, I think in the last 3 matches, I actually believe they've outcompleted as far as a percentage goes. Their completion rate has been higher than the last 3 teams that they've played against.
Wow.
And their tackles to tackle misses are very similar. There's a couple of games there where I believe like their run meters are higher than the opposition.
Wow.
So if you look on stats alone, you're like, oh, well, Storm win those games. But they didn't because they're allowing soft tries on their goal line and they're not playing the same style of footy that they once were at the start of the year. So this is the danger for Parramatta because I know if they don't go there tonight willing to play a little bit of football, the biggest improvement with the Broncos this year and the reason why they are a chance of going top 4 after this weekend is their goal line defence and their willingness to work for each other. And when it gets a little bit tough, they grit their teeth and get through those tough times.
Absolutely. You totally like that. Truly is the difference, is the willingness to refuse to give an inch, refuse to go, all right, I'm just going to rest here. Oh, I'm just going to let this slide. Yep. And that's the concern, I guess. You're right with the Eels is that they have moments where they go, you know what, we'll win the game eventually. So it's all good. We'll let this little standard slide and whatever. We had actually a text come through saying, do we believe, and this is, I'll get the, where it is.
Was it about Para?
Oh, no. Hey, Kempy and Smithy. William from Rugby League Bible here. Does tonight's game between the Broncos and the Eels have massive bearing on not only where those two sides finish, but also the Storm, who just seem to be suffering injury plague? I will say it's a massive game for the Eels because their run home is absolutely crazy. We also had another text earlier saying, hot take, the Eels may miss the 8 because the Eels run home. They've got the Broncos, they've got Storm, they've got the Panthers, and then they've got the Broncos again, and there might be one other top side mixed in there.
It's Storm to finish again.
So
they play Storm twice, Broncos twice, Penrith. Yeah, it's a tough run, mate. It's a tough run.
So if they want to get going,
and the bunnies.
Wow.
Yeah.
They better get going then, because and that's why tonight's so important, because you've got to jag the wins where you can. Otherwise, you might find yourself 1-5 and outside the 8, because there's some teams on the 8 that are starting to hit some bit of form. Raiders, Manly, Roosters.
Yeah, well, this is what they did last year, Kempy. I think their final 7 matches, I think they only got 3 wins.
Wow.
I believe Parramatta, the 3 wins from their last 7 games. So, they don't want a repeat of last year. They really don't. So, they really that's probably the toughest run of any team going into the finals. They just got to, particularly when you're playing at home, they need to bank some wins.
Yeah. And also, I just think that it would be even more devastating, in my opinion, because they can beat the top tier sides. They've proven it. It's not like
they're the only team. They're the only team to beat Melbourne and Penrith.
Yeah, so
only side. So they're more than capable.
And that the premiership is this. If there was a year to win the premiership ever since Brad Arthur has taken over, it is this year. Everything, all the recruitment, all the decisions have been building towards this season for Brad Arthur. So it would be devastating for Eels fans because they're finally at the gate, the premiership gate. It's right there. It would be devastating for them to stumble at the last hurdle. But we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to preview the Dragons versus Manly Seagulls, a huge game, a fight for that 8 spot. I tell you what, that middle of the table is getting very, very exciting. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with the great Cameron Smith. Make sure to download the SEN app or follow the Captain's Run on Apple and Spotify. You'll be able to listen to us anytime, anywhere. Now, welcome back to the Captain's Run with myself and Cam Smith. Time to break down which young players are climbing up the Bailey ladder. Worksite trusted for over 60 years. That is 6 decades of being worksite trusted. And as I said, I've worked on plenty of sites, Smithy, and the standard that you have to reach is massive, mate. Is absolutely massive. But who we got? What young fellas are climbing up the Bailey ladder?
Yes, 3 nominations again, Kempy, for the young person climbing the Bailey ladders. Number 1, though, and you'll be happy about this, Broncos back rower Zach Hosking.
Yes.
How good's he been?
Oh, mate.
He's had 2 games, and the first game that he played was that baby Broncos side that ran out and did a wonderful job for the club. 25 years of age. He's averaged over 150 running metres, 33 tackles, and 5 tackle busts per game. Not a bad way to start your career.
Mate, sign him up, boys. Sign him up.
So good. Number 2, Fanua Pole. After 3 games with the West Tigers, only 20, average 110 metres and 25 tackles per game. So Fanua's doing some wonderful things there for the West Tigers. And number 3, Declan Casey. In only his second NRL game for the Bulldogs, he had 1 try, ran for 160 metres, 2 line breaks, 2 tackle busts against the Rabbits,
Mate.
who are, again, playing well. So that's a fair effort by the young man.
And I just want to say massive shout out to Declan Casey because he had one of the most unfortunate debuts you could remember. Quite a few errors, ended up getting knocked out because he was trying to shot a front rower.
Yes,
And then
right.
he came back the next week and puts this performance in. I tell you what,
Mate.
9 out of 10, not 9 out of 10, a high amount of rookies after that first game would have gone straight into their shell and just tried to get through the game. Declan didn't do that. He came out, he ripped and teared. So massive congratulations to Declan Casey. I'm so stoked that he actually, you would hate for him to only get that one and done game. I think Potter deserves a massive rap for giving him another crack. And now he'd be confident. He'd be ready to go. So Declan Casey, fantastic stuff. That was thanks to Bailey Ladders bringing safety and efficiency to the worksite for over 60 years. Bailey Ladders, they've been around forever, so they know, they do the job. You know that they're a fantastic ladder. Make sure to grab one if you need one at the worksite. We've got some text here, Smithy.
Yes, mate.
We've got 1,000 texts. It's back on the international eligibility. Hey, Goat and Sir Kemp, if we want the game to be an international game and not lose Origin as a product, we need the best players playing Origin and for all other countries, including Australia. Love Dom. He even said love. Love you too, bro. Thoughts, Smithy? I mean, we've gone kind of over that, I guess.
Yeah, we've gone over that. Is that saying that Dom likes the situation we have now, where having people involved in Origin and then them going to say, well, I'm going to go play for another country outside of Australia? Is that right? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I think he's saying allow them to play, like, best of the best play in Origin.
Yep.
We've got another text here, though. Good morning, go to footy and go to other things. Totally agree on Fifita and Kicks comparison. That Kicks is kick-out comparison. I think the Panthers were also guilty in his early career where it was give it to Kicks and let him charge over. It worked in the lower grades, but a bit different in top tier. But as his career has progressed, I think they will really miss him next year. Cheers, boys. Elvis the Sparky.
Elvis. Yeah.
Hey, mate.
What if he's wearing his blue suede shoes?
Mate, if he isn't, I'll be filthy. Mate, it's a great point. I totally agree regarding kick-out. Early in his career, they were just like, do your best. Now they're putting him into prime position, and he is killing it. We're going to head to the break. We've got the news. After the break, we're going to continue previewing the round. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Make sure to download or subscribe to the Captain's Run on Apple and Spotify. Just go to your Apple or Spotify right now. Click follow. You'll be able to listen to it any time. Also, brought to you by Bloke Beer. Make sure to get into your local, grab a case of Bloke Beer. Our Bloke Midi is now in every single Liquor Legends in New South Wales, Victoria, ACT and Queensland, and our original Bloke is in every single Celebrations and Bottle-O in New South Wales and ACT. Grab a case of Bloke Beer. Or we've got Bloke hoodies at bloke.shop. Grab a Bloke hoodie. Now, let's get to the preview. We've got St. George Dragons versus the Manly Seagulls. Moses Mbai replaces Moses Sully in the centres, who was out with an ankle injury. I think it's a massive loss for the Dragons. He's been their most consistent player, or up close to their most consistent player. It sees Jaden Sullivan join the bench. And then we've got Tarek Sims returns from suspension, and Aaron Woods drops to 18th man. Manly Seagulls, Jake Trbojevic is out with COVID. So Tofua Sipley comes into the starting side with Paseka joining the bench. Smithy, how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, I think this is only one-way traffic this weekend. I think it's Manly. Kempy. They've been pretty impressive over the last few weeks. Had a really strong victory on the weekend, 42-12, and I think we spoke about Daly Cherry Evans and his performance in Game 3 of Origin. He's taken that confidence back to clubland, and he was again possibly Manly's best in that win on the weekend. Newcastle not really putting up much of a fight, but I think it might be similar situation for the Dragons this weekend. I really do. Jakey Trbojevic, big out. Obviously, he's leader of that footy side and gets through a ton of work and does some great things, particularly for Foran and Cherry Evans with that link, being a link player in the middle. But I just think Manly get this one done without him as well.
Yeah, look, I'm going to have to agree. I really like the footy that Manly is playing. I think Desi is getting the best out of him. DCE, his confidence is absolutely sky high right now. You've got Kieran Foran, who's playing some great footy. Really interesting. Schuster hasn't been getting the most minutes, which is surprising. He's the guy they've chosen to be the sixth. But he got, I think, like 10 or 13 minutes on the weekend and the week before that. Very conservative minutes. You've got Andrew Davey that's keeping him out of that edge running forward, which is it's going to be interesting to see if there's anything that happens from that. Look, there's no reports that there's any, unhappiness, but I just think it's surprising that a player where you're willing to move on Kieran Foran can't get many minutes or even into the starting side. It's just, it's a really interesting situation. Now, with the Dragons, there's been a bit of pressure on Hook, and that the Dragons have come out and say, we back him, back him all the way, all that kind of stuff. But we have found in the past when directors and the boards come out and say that sometimes that where there's smoke, there's fire. What do you think about the situation? Do you think Hook deserves a bit longer to get this done, or do you think that there should be pressure?
Well, what is it, a season and a half, Kempy? So, look, I think coaches need a bit more than a season and a half to start building some momentum and to start seeing results. It's a long-term process. It really is. And I think if you look over the journey of the particularly the modern game, when you give teams an opportunity over a course of maybe 2 or 3 seasons, you start to see change. Like, have a look at the Broncos for an example.
Mm-hmm.
They were what? They got a wooden spoon in 14th, and now that they've had an opportunity to have some time together and start putting together a team and a game plan and have an understanding of the type of football side that they want to be, have a look at the change in the way they're playing. Now, a lot of that has to do with the attitude of the players. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that, because there's only so much a coach can do to implement things at training, talk about mindsets and attitude and the way they want to play football. At the end of the day, once the coaches have finished that, it's a constant role. Let's not forget about that. Okay, the coaches need to be working with those players every day, and it's constantly trying to improve them. But they can only talk and show players so much. After that's done, the players need to go out and implement those things on the field. So a lot of this the responsibility has to come back to the players. So a year and a half, I'd like to think that Hook has a little bit more time than that.
Yeah, I agree. And also, we have to remember, they're one win outside the 8. They literally are on 18 points. Manly are on 20 points. If they defeat Manly, they go into the 8. And if anyone said at the start of this year that Dragons would make the 8, that's a win.
And the thing with the Dragons is the one thing I've been a little bit surprised with, Kempy, with them is that, only a couple of weeks ago, they were playing some pretty good footy. Like, they put on, what was it? They scored 32 points in a half of football against the Rabbitohs. Now, the Rabbitohs weren't at their best that night, but they scored 32 points in a half of footy. And then they get a close one against Canberra, who we know are they're in pretty good form at the moment. They just knocked off Melbourne in Melbourne. But the turning point for me was like a fortnight ago when they took on the Broncos, a depleted Broncos. I actually thought St. George were going to knock them off. And traditionally they've played quite well up in Brisbane. Had a lot of support there at Suncorp Stadium that day, but they did not fire a shot. They didn't fire a shot, and in the end, they were beaten convincingly by the Broncos. And then last week, we all know what happened last week. So that's been the strange thing for me, is to go, how do you go from a side that is playing the footy you were playing, you scored 32 points and a half of football, and no matter who you play in this comp, if you can score 30 points and a half of footy, you're doing some good things. To what you go from that to what you've shown in the last 2 weeks, I don't know. Consistency is the biggest thing in rugby league, particularly at this level. You can't just pick and choose when you turn up and play well.
Oh, mate, I agree. And also, how can you say Hook can't coach when Ben Hunt is arguably playing career best footy? Yeah. So the blokes that want to respond to Hook and listen to what Hook's saying,
they will.
They'll play good footy.
Yeah.
So, mate, I'm with you. I think that the pressure is a bit crazy. I also think that coaches deserve longer to build what they need to build, especially if they're competitive. If they're sitting around the 8 and they could make it, I think they deserve a few years to get the job done. So in saying all of that, though, I think Manly are just playing better footy at the moment.
Yes.
And they'll get the job done on the weekend. Now, on to the next game. We've got the Newey Knights versus Sydney Roosters. Again, another bloke where there's been a bit of pressure. Adam O'Brien and the Knights. I think we've spoken about it already, though, last week. We both kind of agreed he probably deserved an extra year to sort it out because the club had improved so much since he joined. But Dom Young is listed in the reserves and could play as he overcomes the rib injury. Hymel Hunt is named to start for his first game in 2022. Frizzell and Lee have been named despite suffering injuries, while utility Kurt Mann is the new man on the bench. Sydney Roosters team news: Billy Smith, Satili Tupanua are out for the season after suffering ACL. Devastating, especially obviously it's Satili, no doubt, but Billy, it's his third ACL. He actually came out early in the week and he said there's a bit of guilt there. And I felt my heart broke for him because he said there's a bit of guilt there because they've really backed me. But, mate, you cannot help.
You can't help that.
You can't help it, man.
No. And, like, how unfortunate, like the Roosters, I think that's the third separate incident of a double ACL.
They've had 11 ACLs in 5 years.
Yeah, but in the last 3 years, I think in the last 3 seasons, they've so in 20, 21 and 22, they've suffered double ACLs.
In the same game, like each year.
Crazy.
Wow.
Like to suffer one's, that's pretty hectic, but to have two in a single match 3 years in a row, I don't know what's doing there. I got no idea. It's an unfortunate situation for the Roosters. But with those two guys out, I still feel as though they're going to be good enough to beat Newcastle. But the one thing you were a little bit upset with was the moving, the transition of positions from 5'8", Joey Manu.
Yes, look, I actually at the start of this year I felt that Manu should be their 5'8", because I think that he's one of the best centres of the world, if not the best centre in the world, and I don't even think centre is his best position. The fullback position is obviously Teddy, but I like him at 6 because we know all the stuff in attack. But it's he's a big body. And I just thought that having Keary and Sam Walker, they're both quite small bodies.
Yep.
Defensively, I don't know how that's going to work if both of your edges are... and there's no one's questioning Keary's defence. He's a premiership winning half. Not at all. But it's just that smaller body where, the contact's going to be a little bit less. You're going to be more inclined to be running there. Whereas, like, on the weekend, Manu, he made 14 tackles, only missed 1. And obviously, we saw what he did in attack. It was something like 2 tries.
He ran for 180 metres, I think.
180 metres. He had 3 line breaks. He had 2 line break assists. I just think that at the moment, they're a better side with Manu at 6. I think if I was selecting, I'd put Sam Walker at 14. Or I would, I'd consider speaking to Sam and saying, mate, unfortunately, we're just not in a spot right now. We need to win games. We need to make the 8. So maybe you make the tough call in saying, look, go ply your trade in reserve grade. You haven't been dropped because you're playing poorly. It has everything to do with the fact that Keary's a premiership winner. He's been here for a few years, and it's about seniority and respecting that and giving him the opportunity to own that spot. I would put Sam Walker at 14, though. I'd put Joey Manu at 6, and I'd put Luke Keary at 7. And basically, the battle would be between Keary and Walker to get that spot. Until Manu proves that maybe he's not the 6 or he doesn't play well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think Trent Robinson, he's probably looking back at those years where they won the premierships in 18 and 19 and thinking, well, Joey Manu, he played in the centres through those with Keary at 6, so that's where he feel he can get the job done. Different half, of course. It wasn't Sam Walker, but I don't know. I think Luke Keary needs to be back in the footy side and he needs to get some footy under his belt. He's a wonderful player. We all know that. And he can be a huge part of the back end of this year for the Roosters if they're going to turn this into a successful season. But I do agree with you. Like, he's been playing so well at 6. I think it's just a matter of they've got 3 players there that they want in the 17. Or, sorry, they want the 3 players in the starting side in the 13. And they just need to find the best positions to fit them in there.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one. But I think they feel as though, from a team point of view, it's better to have all 3 of them in the 13 rather than Joey Manu at 6 and one of those halves on the bench.
Can Can you see any movement recruitment-wise happening in the Roosters in the off-season?
Oh, well, you won't say no, particularly with the Roosters. When they make decisions, they make them fast. And if they can find an opportunity to find a player, they will. I'm just trying to find names off the top of my head. I don't know who would be available to go down there. But, yeah, I will say one thing. If they find an opportunity to sign someone that they feel as though will make their squad better for 2023, they'll move quickly and it'll happen fast.
Absolutely. With the Newey Knights, what's going on, Smithy? What do you think they can turn it around?
Oh, look, I don't know, because when you look at their team on paper, like, they're a good football side. They really are. Like, they've got some great players. They've got some good young players. Dom Young, for mine, like, that's a big out. He's been possibly their best player this year. He's been so good.
Yep.
So good. And I know he's playing on the wing, but, the impact he's had on that footy side is just unbelievable. And it's not just his ability to score points, like his ability to stop points as well. Like, his defensive efforts have been outstanding. They've had a whole heap of injuries throughout the year, which haven't helped their campaign. But I think they're starting to get some players back now, which will help out their cause. I'd like to think, the last game, the game 3 for Kalen Ponga, that really has to be a confidence booster for him. And I think I mentioned this last week after the wash-up of Origin 3, that needs to be Kalen Ponga's standard now. Like, I know, like, and when I mean that, like, he doesn't have to walk off the field every week with the same game that he played in game 3 and matching those stats, but that needs to be his goal. His mindset needs to be, I need to go out, and that needs to be my contribution each week.
I totally agree. Now, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty still to come. We're going to wrap up the hour, but after that, we've still got plenty to preview. We've got our match of the round brought to you by Suncorp. Make sure to follow us on Apple or Spotify, The Captain's Run, and we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to The Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. We've got some text here. Smithy, thoughts on Ciraldo to the Bulldogs? Are we seeing Barrett 2.0 playing out again? What is the obsession with Penrith assistants?
Well, I can understand why they'd be after Cameron Ciraldo. He's been part of a successful system there for the last couple of years. He knows exactly what goes on behind the 4 walls at Penrith. But I don't know. Will they land him, Kempy?
I reckon they will. I reckon they will.
Really?
I reckon they offer it too good to turn down, and the doggies
too good to refuse.
Yeah, and they've the doggies have been playing some pretty good footy, so it's getting more and more enticing to coach. I think they land him.
Wow, that'll be a big coup for the Dogs.
Now we're going to see you on the other side, guys. Make sure to stay tuned. We've still got plenty to talk about. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Now, Smithy, big news coming out of the Dolphins. Anthony Milford signing for the Dolphins. Now, we kind of predicted this would happen. Is this the guy, finally, that they get that can be... I mean, we know he can be the guy for sure. Like, we're talking about a 2015, 16, even 2017, Milford was incredible. Do you think Wayne can finally rest a little bit thinking, okay, I've got a guy that could potentially be the superstar of the team?
Yeah. Well, I think he can a little bit. I think the pressure's off slightly, given they've now got a mature, aged half playing in there with a fair bit of experience. He's played in some big matches, and if there's one person that can reignite Anthony Milford back to his best football, I think it's Wayne Bennett. And to try and extract the best out of him and what he's got left in his career. So it's positive signs for Redcliffe, but they still need to fill a lot of spots on their roster, don't they?
Especially their back line.
Yeah, and the preparation for next season as each day goes by, it gets closer and closer, doesn't it? And we spoke about that my concern earlier in the year was that they still needed to fill, I think, at least half of their roster, and we're only a short period of time away from them starting to prepare for next year. Like they'll be training in October. They'll be training in late October. Like there'll be some players that they've signed, say like the Bromwich brothers and Felice Kafusi, some guys that are coming from other clubs that will be involved in finals that won't be back that early, but they'll have a group of players that they need training in October, but they've yet to still fill their entire squad, their roster.
Look, I think that, barring injuries, it's a competitive side for sure. I think the problem at the Dolphins right now is if there's one or two injuries, wow, it could be tough.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you need that. That's part of your makeup of your roster is to say you need to plan for injuries. You need to plan for suspensions. And now more so than ever, and we don't know where the competition is going to go next year as far as the COVID situation and players picking up COVID. But you're seeing players every week being left out because they've picked up the virus. So you need to be prepared to lose players every week of the season through suspension, injury, COVID stuff, whatever it is. And you need people there to come and stand up and fill that void when they're needed. So, and as you mentioned, the most important thing for Redcliffe is that they are competitive. And that's really important from an organisation standpoint, from a NRL competition point of view as well. We just don't want to have an expansion side come in first season and just not be competitive.
Where does this leave the Newey Knights?
A bit of trouble.
Yeah,
a lot of trouble. And that's the thing with the teams that aren't travelling so well at the moment is their ability to attract quality footballers. That's the issue they have. But, it's not, you can't just point your finger to one solution. Like it needs to be a group of, the list management, coaching staff and the players. They need to work together to make these football teams and these football clubs successful.
Absolutely. Now let's get into the Raiders versus the Warriors at 3 p.m. Saturday at GIO Stadium. Wingers Jordan Rapana and Schiller are out with suspension and injury, and they're replaced by Chotrick and Albert Hopewati. Skipper Elliot Whitehead. Elliot Whitehead. Apologies.
Yep.
Skipper Elliot Whitehead also returns. So Corey Harawira-Nawa goes to the bench. Then with the Warriors, huge news. Reece Walsh has been dropped to the bench, while Chanel Harris-Tavita is at fullback, and Arcee starts at 5'8". Watani Zalesniak returns on the wing in place of Ed Cossey. Thoughts on the Warriors putting Walsh to the bench?
Yeah, I had to actually double take. I had a double take when I read that, which is surprising. I thought, he's one of their more dangerous players, and they need point scorers on the field for them. I don't know what the move is there. I don't know whether that's something that's happened away from the football field. I'm not too sure, because he's certainly one of their more dangerous players out in the football field. And again, they tried hard last week against Parramatta. They really did, but I just didn't see much from them. That's going to point me towards a victory against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders, on the other hand, they went down to Melbourne, which was a big weekend. Again, Storm missing players, but there's many teams missing players right now. And I don't know. They found a formula that's working for them right now. And if you look at their remaining games of the season, there's 7 games left in the season. They play 2 teams currently in the top 8. That's all they've got. Wow. So out of their remaining 7 games, they take on Penrith and Manly, and that's it. Every other team that they play are outside the top 8. So this is a side that if they continue on their winning ways, they'll finish playing finals footy.
Wow, that's
which is huge. Compare, if you're thinking early in the year, you're just like, mate, write them off. Which is again and a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, mate, you're talking some dribble here, Smithy. Like early in the year when you're talking about those teams that weren't travelling so well. If you just had to look at the competition, and outside, remember when we were talking early in the season, outside of Penrith, Melbourne, and I think possibly Cowboys at that stage, or maybe not even Cowboys, maybe it was just even Melbourne and Penrith. Outside of those 2 teams, there were so many clubs that you could toss a coin on how they were going to turn up on the weekend.
Yeah.
So, this is a great example of the Canberra Raiders side just going, let's just hang in there. keep working at our trade, try and improve. And now that they've jagged a few wins, they could find themselves, sitting well inside the top 8, playing finals footy.
And I think that Ricky deserves a massive rap for how much he's matured as a coach. It looked like for a period there, it was getting away from him. It looked like the playing group were really not on board with what was going on. But now they look like they're playing for Ricky.
Yeah. And there was question marks, wasn't there, about what was going on with team morale, and did they like Ricky? He lost the locker room, and players' partners were tweeting things about team selections and where players were playing, which is, I think that's just, I don't know, that's another issue. But they've turned things around. And again, it's a team effort that needed to happen for that to occur. But again, if they continue on the way that they've placed themselves over the last month, they'll be well and truly playing finals footy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly back on the Reece Walsh thing, the thing that's so surprising about that is I would understand if they replaced him with a fullback that's going to be there next year. And they're saying, look, if Reece isn't going to be here next year, let's build towards 2023. But the surprising thing is Chanel's not going to be there next year either. He's quitting footy for a year at least.
Yeah, he's having a year off.
Which I respect massively. Maybe I should have a year off after my first year and just rode off into the sunset. It was a good first year. I could have said I was the best winger ever. I just didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah. And sometimes... That's a good one. Mate, sometimes I think in these situations, now we don't know. We don't know if he's been dropped to the bench because he's leaving and planning for next year, whatever. If you're going to make that decision, why not let the bloke go now then?
Good point.
And it's just a point to raise and just a question to toss out there. Now I don't know whether that's the right thing to do or whatnot, but if you're actually giving up on that player because you said, well, you've made a decision to leave, we can't play finals, so we want to start preparing for next year. Well, let the bloke go now.
Yeah.
Agreed. If you're saying that you're going to start building towards next year, then let that current player go. Because obviously you're not concerned about that player and what he's doing in that current season, nor are you worried about what other clubs are doing. So if you say you let Reece Walsh go now to the Broncos, right? Do you care if he helps the Broncos go and deep into the finals or possibly give them an opportunity to win a premiership?
Yeah,
because you're not, because what you're making that decision on your team. So what the Broncos do is not going to affect what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So I don't know. I don't get it. If you're worried about your side and winning footy games, then keep the person in there that's going to help your team play the best.
And I mean, me personally, when the Warriors were struggling, I felt like Reece was the one having a dig, trying to get him out of it. Anyway, really interesting. I think the Raiders get the job done. Now, on to the match of the round. This is brought to you by Suncorp. Get award-winning car insurance with Suncorp. Now, Suncorp's been around. It's almost part of Australian culture. So Suncorp Insurance, the good stuff. Make sure to get it. This is brought to you by Suncorp Insurance. It's a Penny Panthers versus the Cronulla Sharks. All 7 of the rested Origin players are back for this weekend's clash. Eisenhuth and Kenny revert to the bench. Sharks team news, Katoa is out for the season after requiring shoulder surgery. Poor fella. Having easily the best year of his career. Connor Tracy reverts to the wing, who is absolutely no slouch himself. And Talakai returns at centre. Britton Nakora returns for suspension, and Teague Wilton moves to the bench. Thoughts on this match, Smithy?
Look, I think Penrith. These are the easiest ones to preview, really, aren't they? And it sounds a little bit boring and repetitive and monotonous, but yeah, you look at those ins, mate, like Api Coruscant, Brian To'o, Isaiah Yeo. It's the Origin boys coming back. That just makes this team so formidable. I just don't know who beats them, really. And I said it's going to take a team to play out of their absolute skin, or for Penrith to have an absolute shocker for them to lose a game this year. And I know we've seen some special things happen in finals footy and some out of the blue results. But as far as the rest of this season is concerned, I don't know. I just don't see this team dropping a game.
Now, I could be crazy here, Smithy, but I think that And look, they're two different teams. But the bulk of New South Wales were Penrith. Did Queensland lay a kind of a game plan out to beat that Penrith style of footy? Because there's no denying that New South Wales do take a lot of inspiration from Penrith. And I wonder if we're going to see teams beginning to kick early in sets against Penrith to upset the rhythm of that, kick when they get kicked deep into outside backs come in, they scoot, the forwards rest and then shoot off the line. Do you think that people are going to be watching that game 3 and going, this is how we beat Penrith?
Well, they should, and they need to look at like Parramatta as well. It's the only team that's beaten Penrith this year. Parramatta, and what they did was they come with a attitude to play physical. They come with an attitude to make the Penrith players uncomfortable. And they chanced their arm at times. Like you look at a couple of their tries, like they weren't set plays. They were just off the cuff. Guys having a crack at the try line, 3 plays on them, late offload, second phase play, and they score points. So you got to be prepared to chance your arm a little bit because they will not give you a single easy opportunity. Penrith, they're a well-drilled footy side. They're a good defensive team, and they're smart with the football. They don't try and overplay their hand much with the football anymore. And again, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the captain's run, is that, gone are the days where you see Penrith go chasing points, every time they touch the ball. They're happy to grind out a win, but all of a sudden, when you look up at the scoreboard, they've put 30 on you. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, mate, this is just relentless. And it hasn't been through any special plays or anything like that. They just grind you into the ground, make their way up the other end, and score points. And they do it consistently well. If you're looking for something out of Origin and the way you need to play the Penrith Panthers, just think back to the last 3 seasons. Now, this team, they are a team that has dictated to every team they've played throughout the last 3 seasons the way the game's going to go. Very rarely have they played from behind on the scoreboard, and they've just been comfortable in their games. So you need to find a way to make them uncomfortable. You need to find a way to unsettle their players, whether it's through the way you talk on the field, your physicality towards them, trying to get under their skin a little bit, try and take their minds off the footy. And the thing is, they've become very used to winning on the scoreboard. So if you can plan a game around trying to score some early points and put a little bit of scoreboard on these players, pressure does funny things to people. Okay, so that's when they start to make mistakes. Like, look at Stephen Crichton in the Origin, and he said so as much. Like, he made a completely wrong decision. Why did he make the wrong decision there? Because he was trying to make something happen for his football side. They needed points. They needed something. They needed a big play. He looked for it, and it didn't come off for him. Whereas when he's 12 points up, he doesn't even think about offloading the ball. Jerome Luai, same thing. He's seen space on the outside. He tried to throw the ball to Brian To'o, goes over his head into touch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like they don't have to make those decisions much in club football because very rarely are they behind on the scoreboard.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, and I tell you what, one of my favourite times of the show. I have the holy schnitz moments of the week, and I tell you what, Smithy, I was watching the Roosters versus the Dragons game. And I was just sitting back, and it looked like the Roosters has got the job done. Just enjoying rugby league. Just enjoying it. And then
Rugby league? Yep.
Rugby league. And then out of nowhere, I yelled, holy schnitz, because a bloke looked like he got a cramp. Then he said, no, I don't have a cramp. A little goosey, a little step here, a little right foot there, and then a kick and a try. And I thought, holy schnitz, I've never seen that, where a bloke puts his hand down, it looks like he's injured, then says, oh, there's an opportunity here, and he scores. Well, he has a try assist. So Joey Manu, absolutely my holy schnitz moment of the week.
Crazy.
Just a crazy stuff.
What a play.
What a massive play.
I was watching this game with Billy Slater, and when he stopped, we both sat up and went, oh, no, he's done his calf.
Yep.
We thought he injured himself.
Yeah.
But it was the old rope-a-dope. Got him a beauty.
1-0. 1-0,
Joey.
Joey.
Him to sleep. Sent him to sleep, and then bang.
Hit him.
Just straight. Too good. That's a great moment. I like it.
Holy schnitz. What's your moment for the week, mate?
Mine was, it was Cameron Smith, not me, the great golfer from Queensland, winning the Open. So the British Open this week. He is on fire at the moment. Won an early tournament, start of the year over in Hawaii. Then he won the Players, picked up a cool $5 million. Thank you very much.
Whoopsie.
And then he's won the Open, which is, many people say, the most prestigious, certainly the oldest tournament in golf. Shot an 8 under final round, Kempy. 8 under.
I tell you what.
Just unbelievable. And I'll tell you, at odds too, because going into the fourth round, Rory McIlroy was the leader. So he would have been the crowd favourite coming from Northern Ireland, playing up in that part of the world, in the Northern Hemisphere. I think there would have been a lot of Northern Irishmen there behind Rory McIlroy. But Cameron Smith, he's going from strength to strength. And I haven't seen the world rankings, but he was 6th coming into that tournament. I think he'll now be 2nd.
Look, Smithy, I need you to correct my math here, but I read an article that he has earned $22 million in prize money this year. Have you read the same articles, or am I just being a crazy man?
You know what? I don't think you're a crazy man at all. I actually think that's pretty close to the mark, because he won $5 million straight off the bat in one tournament. One tournament.
How much?
I think that would have been pretty close to winning the Open as well. I think that prize money would have been up around the sort of $3 to $4 million. I think if some of our listeners may be able to text in and clarify that for us. But yeah, he's doing some really good things, Cameron Smith. He's flying the flag for the Aussies. And how good was it? So the trophy you win for winning the Open, it's called the Claret Jug. He filled it with beer and just smashed it.
Yep.
Smashed it.
What an absolute legend.
His press conference, he said, like, how are you going to celebrate? I'm going to fill it up. And I think he said, I'm going to have 20 jugs.
Wow.
So that's like 40 beers.
I mean,
how good. He loves it.
I wouldn't put it past him. Cameron Smith, two Cameron Smiths, both absolute legends, but Cameron Smith, a golfer, incredible having the year of his career. So massive congratulations to Smithy. Hope he enjoys his beers. We're going to head to a break, and then after the break, we're going to continue previewing the round. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Give us a text 0457 736 736 or call 1300 01 1170 and ask any question you would like about footy. But we have to preview one of the most important matches of the round. Smithy, we've got to get into it, mate. I know you've been sitting there going, I don't know if I want to get into the dark days at the moment.
Can we skip past this?
We have the South Sydney Rabbitohs versus the Melbourne Storm. Now, South Sydney Rabbitohs have Cookie, Cam Murray are both back from their rest, which sees Davi Moale and Havili back to the bench. And Tane Milne has been dropped, which sees Jed Cartwright move to the centres. Now, the Storm, team news. The great Ryan Pappenhausen is out for the season, which sees Nick Meaney move to the fullback. Tyrone Wishart start on the wing, on the sting. Wishart on the sting. Wow. Talk about a utility. And Grant Anderson is the new man on the bench. Pappenhausen, devastated for the poor fella. He's had such an unlucky run with injury. But how do you see this match playing out, Smithy?
This is going to be a good game. South have found a bit of form with Latrell coming back over the last fortnight. As I said earlier, Cody Walker by far has been playing much better football with Latrell back. He's scoring tries. He's setting up tries. This is a huge game for Melbourne. If they lose this one, they're out of the top four, which they've been cemented in for a long period of time. So this is an absolute danger game, and then they follow that up with a game on the road again in New Zealand. They have to go to Auckland after this week to play the Warriors. So this is, I look at it, and I look at it as a must-win for them to stay in the top four. There's still another 3 games without Brandon Smith, I believe. Sorry, 2 games.
Yeah,
because he got 3 weeks, didn't he? Yeah. So there's another 2 games that they have to play without Brandon Smith. Pappenhausen now, it's just for an individual player, he's just been battered this year, hasn't he? Battered. I can't believe the season that he's had, and he's missed games in the past, but he just seems to be finding a new injury each time he comes back in, and a fractured kneecap. That's not ideal at all. So he'll miss the rest of the season. So they're going to have to come up with a plan now to chuck someone in their fullback. I think what they need to make a decision It's from my point of view, I think they need to make a decision on who their one is, who is best suited to play one for the rest of the season, and just stick with them. I don't think it's time to be chopping and chasing and see, over the next month who should play there. I think they need to make a decision now and go, right, you're our man. You will be the Storm fullback for the remainder of this season, and let's just get on with it.
What about, and this is just a hot take, I don't know if I agree with it myself, but what about Munster back to one?
Oh.
Because we know how good he is there, and, I understand, Meany's probably more suited in regards to, your depth in the halves probably isn't the best, but at least you know what he can bring at one, Thoughts?
Yep. I actually don't mind the idea.
Ooh.
I don't mind the idea. Whether I haven't had a chance to really think about that deeply and look at the players that are fit for the Storm and what that would look like for the rest of the lineup, like who goes then to 6. But I don't completely dislike the idea because I just think he is just a natural footballer, and it's funny. Even speaking with Billy Slater, one of the greatest fullbacks, if not the greatest fullback to play our game, certainly in the modern era he is. Listening to his comments about Cameron Munster when he goes to fullback, you don't even have to coach him.
Yeah, wow.
He just knows where he has to be, both with the ball, so he can find the ball, he can sniff out an opportunity, he can find space. He knows where he needs to position himself in and around the ball players, but defensively is his big go. He just knows where to position himself on tackle 5, working with both his wingers with his work in the backfield, on kick reception, defending on the try line, when to bring himself into the defensive line, when to stay out of it. It's just he's got this ability, this knack to be able to just know where to be at the right time. So I don't think it's the worst idea at all. It's just a matter of how does that then affect their attack in particular?
Because what I'm thinking with the Storm is, okay, if it's almost like if you, with the current injuries, you're loading the halves too much in the sense that if you have Munster and Hughes both in the halves, they're so good they could probably handle the halves by themselves and have just a solid 6 outside them. And I wonder whether if you went Hughes and you said, look, let's just pick a 6, it's a really good defender and basically has a nice pass on him. And then you've got Hughes that has enough flair, enough flash to bring that to the game. But Hughes and Munster at fullback is enough to get the job done. You know what I'm kind of saying?
Yeah. I agree with you, mate. And like I said, I don't dislike the idea at all because of the quality of fullback that Cameron Munster is, and particularly what he offers defensively. He can organise a line. As I said, he knows where to be at the right time. He knows how to position himself in the defensive line. He works well with his 2 wingers. Defending kicking games, particularly in the important games, like when you get to finals, when you're playing against the good kickers. It's a big decision to make, and I'll tell you, with Cam Munster at fullback, it certainly wouldn't be the worst one.
Yeah, I also like the fact him bringing it back each time and starting your sets off really well. It just gets you on the front foot, which I think that Melbourne Storm's footy is a lot of front foot footy, high pace around the ruck. That would help. Now, onto the south. Speaking of crazy fullbacks, Latrell Mitchell.
Yeah.
His game the other week was absolutely incredible. And I think when you look at a bloke made for Origin, he's the kind of guy that, let's say Queensland were putting his under the pump. He, put New South Wales on the pump. And I know he had to rule himself out. But I think it was a real point for him to prove, in his mind, maybe it would have been a different story in Game 3 if he was playing. And just to let people know that. Because after the game, he said, that number 3 New South Wales jersey, it's still mine. So clearly, he's a passionate New South Welshman, and that loss stung him. He comes out, plays the way he did. Is Latrell Mitchell enough for the Rabbitohs to be premiership threats, or do you need to see a little bit more?
No, I think most definitely they are, because they're a completely different footy side with him in it. And you look at last year, and I know these are all what ifs, like you mentioned the Game 3 Origin, if he was playing, what if he was playing? Look at the grand final last year. What if?
Yeah.
They went down by 2 points. If he was playing, would that have been the difference? Possibly, but possibly not. You just don't know until they're there. But certainly, if we take a read over the last fortnight, he's made a huge difference, not just him being in the side and his individual input, but the effect he's had on the players around him in particular. They're certainly a team that you shouldn't be writing off at no stage with him fit and playing each week.
And look, if they continue this form, I think Demetrio deserves a massive rap, because it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, you're sitting there saying, probably an unsatisfactory year by the Rabbitohs. They're currently sitting in a position where if everything goes their way, they could even squeeze into the top 5. They're currently 7th. They're on 22 points. They're a win away from the top 4. So Storm are on 24 points. The Rabbitohs are on 22 points. So for Demetrio to lose, they lose Wayne Bennett, they lose Adam Reynolds, they lose Dane Gagai. For him to take this team after not having Latrell for the first half of the season, I think that's incredible by Demetrio if he can get that done. I honestly think it's incredible.
And it looked like panic stations only a few weeks ago, didn't it, mate?
Absolutely.
When they took on St George and had 32 put on them, he hooked Ilias.
Yeah.
He hooked Burgess in the early stages of that match, and there was a lot of question marks being sent towards the Rabbitohs and that they were gone. But yeah, it's funny that how one guy can make a big difference.
Now, we are going to head to a break. After the break, we've still got the Bulldogs versus the Titans, and we've got the North Queensland Cowboys versus the Tigers. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Make sure to follow us on Apple or Spotify. The Captain's Run. All you got to do is hit subscribe. Then you can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Also, download the SEN app. If you're listening on AM radio, download the SEN app, and you can listen to it in good, crystal clear digital radio. But let's get to the games. Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs versus the Gold Coast Titans. The Bulldogs' Josh Adokar has been named despite injury and will be monitored throughout the week. Aaron Shop is listed as 18th man as he looks to return from COVID. Jaden Campbell has been named on the bench for his first game since round 13. Skipper Tino Fa'asuamaleaui returns at lock, which sees Aaron Clark to the bench, which means that Aaron Booth keeps his starting spot. I think this is a great win for the Titans. Seems like they've got an experienced 9 to lead them around the park. I thought Aaron Clark was Titans' best last week. I actually wouldn't mind Aaron Clark staying at the starting 13 role and having a starting front row of Tino and Moe Fotuaika. But how do you see this game playing out, Smithy?
I reckon the Titans might win this one.
Oh, okay.
Come on, boys.
I tell you what, you've backed the Titans all year. They owe you big time.
I know.
You've been riding them.
Oh, mate. I've been sticking with them through thick and thin. And it's Big Tino. He's up against Burton. Kempy. Little rematch.
Mate,
I don't think they'll come to blows like they did in Origin. Very different situation, this one. But
I tell you what.
I'm excited to see Jaden Campbell. Sorry, mate, go.
I was going to say there's going to be some Bulldogs forwards. That was their little mate, Burton. That's,
you reckon?
I reckon they'll be. I mean, you know better than anyone, Smithy. Yeah. The forwards protect their halves at all costs. And when the forwards are always told, I remember a little story of my own. So I was playing at the Dragons in reserve grade. Wasn't playing very well, but I was playing. And basically I got head high, and people would try to head high me, being like an NRL player coming back to reserve grade and, being a smaller winger. And Mary, the St. George coach, he was the Illawarra Cutters coach at the time.
Mary McGregor,
sorry. Anyway, so we did a video session, and he pulled that up and he replayed it. And he absolutely gave it to our forward pack because no one went in there and with a bit of his-hoss. Didn't get in there quick enough. And
really?
So it's a good, like a really good example that some, like the forwards are really tasked with protecting their smaller players. I don't know, Smithy, if you've got any experience.
They're protectors.
Absolutely. Yep. So I wonder whether this Bulldogs pack has watched what happened to Burton and said, Tino, I'm coming for you. Tavita Pangai Jr., I think he'll be hunting for someone. What do you reckon, Smithy?
Yeah, possibly. I think they might try and go after him a little bit. But as we all know, and whether it's right or wrong, NRL is very different to Origin, so they need to be careful. They need to be careful. Anyone goes high or throws a punch and all that sort of stuff, they will be punished. It's very different to Origin, but they might send a little message to say we weren't happy with the way you treated our man Matty Burton. Anyway. Tino's a big, strong boy. He'll handle it.
He'll handle it all right. I love Tino.
He'll handle it.
Mate, he's one of my favourite players. Seriously, love him. Now, Cowboys versus the Tigers. I think the Cowboys are in for a big one. The Maroon representatives, Val Holmes, Dearden, Nanai, and Murray Tawalangi will return. Lucia Leilua moves to the bench to take care of Nanai returning to the starting side. Tigers, James Roberts and Nofwaluma are listed among the reserves as they look to return from illness, while Brent Naden returns on the wing after 4-game suspension. James Tarmow, massive congratulations.
Yeah, well done, Jimmy.
300 games at prop.
Yeah, huge.
Massive.
Huge. And he's playing against the team where, well, it all started at North Queensland for him, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
There you go. That's a nice way. I know it'd be nice to play it on his home dunghill, but nice to be able to play it up at Townsville.
Now, how do you see this game playing out?
Oh, I think it's all one-way traffic. I think Cowboys they just get back on track now. I thought they were really unlucky against the Sharkies. A couple of little dodgy ones.
Tough calls.
Couple of dodgy calls went against them, and particularly the Taumalolo try. If they score there,
is that one of the worst calls you've ever seen?
Mate, I don't want to get caught up on that
sort
of stuff.
I'm allowed to say that because no one will pick it up. Whereas if Cameron Smith says it, it's everywhere. Sorry, bro.
It's not about that. I shake my head and just think, how do we get that wrong? Anyway, we move on. I think if Taumalolo scores there, I think Cowboys go on with it, but they didn't. Well done to the Sharkies, but I think they get their winning ways back on track here at home. I know it's a big match for Jimmy Tarmow playing his 300th, but I think the Cows will be too strong. They have to be like they're sitting second. They're thinking, mate, this is let's lock in second spot.
Yeah, I think so.
Lock it away.
Huge opportunity. I'm still laughing. I nearly walked you into that. Sorry, Smithy. Oh, man. No, I agree. I think the Cowboys, Toddy Payton will be at boys. We have an opportunity to lock that second place up. And for them to go from 15th to second, it'd be one of the great turnarounds. I cannot stress enough how impressed I am with Toddy Payton. Tigers, they showed some fight last week. Unfortunately, I just think it's going to be a bit of a long year for them. I think they might get up energy-wise for Tarmow, but the Cowboys are just looking too good.
Can you believe? I think if memory serves me right, I think Todd Payton, he's got only 12 months left on his contract at Cowboys. Well, lock him away.
Lock him away. Now we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to get to your texts, so make sure to stay tuned. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Another show done and dusted. Absolutely loved it, Smithy. Thanks as always for giving the people what they want, which is a bit of footy chat. We've got some texts here. G'day, boys. Big shout out to the GOAT on unveiling of your stand at Amy Stadium. But don't feel left out, the beak. I can't wait to book the Kempy penthouse at the Gambaro Hotel. Cheers, Jace. How good. What was that like? Just quickly, seeing the big Cam Smith stand come out. It was awesome.
It was awesome. No, it was good, mate. And it was a good weekend too because it was Old Boys weekend. There was about 30 or 40 former Storm players down there, so it was nice to share that experience. First time I was able to really actually go and say thank you to all the fans and members of the Storm since I finished. So it was a good weekend.
Mate, just seeing that big Cam Smith, who would have thought, hey? Young fella from Logan. Is Logan correct?
Yeah, Logan, yeah. I got one over Billy too because he's got the northern stand. I got the eastern. So it's just a little bit bigger. Got him.
There it is. Thanks, guys, for listening. You can download us on Apple and Spotify or download the SEN app, and we'll see you next week.